Welcome back, everyone. It's here. And today I've got some r/BestOf for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading you the posts, giving you my opinions, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. This post was collected by Big O Nerd. The original OP is Minute Memory 6253, posted to r/advice April 8th, 2026. My sister is threatening to tell my family and boyfriend that I slept with her fiancé. So I, 24 female, have a sister, 29 female, who has been in a relationship for 3 years. She got engaged in February 2025. They rented a small flat in our city. However, she has been staying at our parents recently due to the fight that started this. I am a student who's living at home while finishing my master's degree. I have a boyfriend of 2 years, and we are currently long distance as he is studying abroad. Little bit of backstory. Me and my sister don't get along. I have ADHD, my sister has ADHD, hyperactive type. She has always been the comedian of the family, but often her jokes come at the expense of others and involves winding people up or acting as a wooden spoon to stir any pot of drama she can find. I tend to not initiate contact with her to avoid any potential issues, since, while she is family, I feel more stressed after spending time with her. Me and my sister's fiancé get along pretty well, however. We have shared interests in motorsports, and we usually talk about it at family get-togethers. We don't talk outside of gatherings much, just the occasional text when F1/MotoGP is running, or little life updates if we haven't seen each other in a while. My parents have said previously they find it odd how I'm fine with talking to her fiancé, but have a weird aversion to talking to her directly. But this has never been a point of tension. Back to the recent times. A little over a month ago, my sister found bank statements in their flat for cards she didn't know existed. Most of the transactions had been to hotels or restaurants abroad. She checked the dates of the restaurants, and they lined up with the times and countries he had been away for work trips. But the exact restaurant and hotel locations do not add up. E.g., him going away for a conference, but the hotel and restaurants he booked were at least an hour away from the city. She immediately thought he was cheating and searched his phone, but found nothing. He caught her snooping, and they fought about it, which ended up with him admitting he had cheated while abroad. The wedding is off, and she has moved back into our parents' place while they figure out their lease. The weekend after she came back to our parents, we went out for dinner, as they thought she could use a pick-me-up evening with the whole family. Over dinner, we talked a lot about recent life events, other than my sister's fight, and travel got brought up. I had traveled to Singapore in September of 2025 to visit friends and relive our undergraduate clubbing days. My parents wanted to plan a trip to Singapore, and I recommended the hotel I stayed in, plus a few nice spots around the area. In hindsight, my sister was uncharacteristically silent after this, but the rest of the dinner went by pretty normally. 2 days ago, my sister invited me to go to dinner that evening, saying she had something serious she wanted to talk about without worrying our parents. This was very out of the ordinary for her. We haven't gone out to dinner with just us two since I was probably 15, but this whole situation was hardly ordinary either, so I didn't question it. The dinner hardly had any talking. Right after we ordered our drinks, she accused me of sleeping with her fiancé and being one of the women he was cheating on her with. She pulled up the bank statements for me to check, and sure enough, there are transactions for the same hotel in the same week I was in Singapore, the one I mentioned to our parents. She accused me of being jealous of her relationship, saying that I was bitter that she was proposed to within 2 years of them starting dating, and that I clearly thought I was a better match for her fiancé since we had more hobbies and interests in common. We literally only have one. There was a lot of back and forth of me trying to reason with her and get any sort of exact detail or legitimate proof that could have caused her to think this. But by this point, she was livid. The whole thing escalated from 0 to 100 within like 15 minutes. I'm definitely missing a few details of her accusations. There were a lot of them, but the main threat she had was to tell my parents and my boyfriend I was a bitter, lying homewrecker, her exact words, if I didn't come clean. How on earth is someone meant to navigate this situation? I think it goes without saying that I never cheated, and definitely not with her fiancé. But how does someone begin to plead their innocence in a situation like this? I have no witnesses from me when I was in Singapore. I was visiting friends, yes, but I stayed in my hotel every night, since they all live in different areas and the hotel was pretty central. Both sides of this case have basically no firm evidence other than a few bills. On top of this, how would I even begin to manage the fallout if she were to tell people this? Long distance is hard enough as is. I cannot imagine how shattered my boyfriend would be if he was told I cheated with a man he considered a friend. Any advice would be massively appreciated. I will update this post once I have more information or to answer any common questions. Extra info. There was a 3-day overlap in dates. I arrived Tuesday, left Sunday. The statements show charges from the Friday until sometime the week after. Don't remember exactly what day, I just know it was after I left. First edit. Boyfriend has been told. I will post a formal update tomorrow once I have also spoken to my parents about this as to not spam the subreddit. But I will no longer need advice with how to approach him with this issue. Thank you all for your help on that front. Comments. User, hey, just saying. It's a massive coincidence that you would stay at the exact hotel her boyfriend stayed at on the same dates that he was there. This is a hard one to disprove if you aren't doing things with your friends in the evenings. OP responds, the coincidence? Agreed. I was really shocked when she showed me the bank statement. The dates had a 3-day overlap where we were both in the same hotel, though I never saw him or knew he was there. I was talking about how I had planned this trip for at least a month beforehand though, so I'm hoping my parents aren't too old that they remember me asking about flights and travel restrictions. I don't go abroad often, but my mom has traveled a lot for work, so she's my go-to for travel advice. Proof from evenings. I do have photos from nights out with my friends that prove I was with them basically every evening, but those photos dwindle in numbers the later each night got. I will have to ask my friends if any of them can vouch that they dropped me off at my hotel, as that would disprove any restaurant charges. However, the issue of being in the same hotel rears its head again here, since she could always argue I went back to his room instead of mine. User Decage55 comments, when you went in your hotel room, did you open the door at any point? If not, you may get the hotel to provide keycard usage for those 3 days. Easier than surveillance footage. Of course, if you left your room to get ice or some other innocuous reason, that won't help. OP responds, I'm literally drafting up an email to the hotel as I type this. I was about to ask about surveillance footage, but this had just given me a new idea. Thank you. User Tumbly Bump comments, context is everything. If you live in Hong Kong or Australia and all have busy professional lives, I can believe it. If you are from Dublin, New York City, or London, and in lives that doesn't require travel, it gets a bit harder. OP responds, we are all London-based. I am a student. I explicitly traveled over summer to visit people who went to my university for their undergrad degrees, since the university I go to is very international. He works in finance, and the company he works for is also very international. I don't know his exact job title, but I have seen a few clips of him speaking at conferences in Milan. So he definitely does travel legitimately for work. Downvoted commenter. Long-distance relationships are almost always doomed to fail, but I don't know you or your boyfriend, so who knows? Yours may survive this. You are correct that you don't have any way to prove innocence, but she just has circumstantial evidence against you anyway. Let her say what she's going to say. Like I said, I don't know you or your boyfriend, but try to put yourself in his shoes and imagine how he'd want to first hear these things. From you or from her. Heck, you could even just cut and paste your thread and text it to him. If he cares about you and learn the nature of the relationship you have with your sister, he'll see the truth. I would hope. If he doesn't, then just console yourself that he doesn't know the real you. OP responds, we haven't been long distance the whole time, just since August of last year, since he took a year abroad in university. He visited over Christmas, and we had plans to see each other over Easter, but mutually agreed that exams are kicking both of our asses, and that we are better off just doing some parallel play via studying on FaceTime together. All is going well right now, despite the stress of exams, and now the added drama from this. I do trust that he will see my POV. We both are similar in that we think through things somewhat robotically/logically. So, I believe if I lay out the facts, similarly to how I have done on this thread, he will be able to see the whole picture quite fast. However, this doesn't account for the chance that he doesn't trust me. Haven't quite thought through my game plan if that happens. It's not a pleasant thought to consider that your own partner doesn't believe that you didn't sleep with his friend. Comment from Homitu. I mean, was your hotel the iconic Marina Bay Sands or similar Singapore-specific masterpiece of architecture hotel that is very popular and common to want to stay at? If so, that makes the coincidence a little more palatable. The shitty thing about massive coincidences is that because they're so improbable, we think them impossible, but the fact is, in a world with trillions of highly improbable possibilities, some of them must occur. Coincidences just happen. Doesn't help your case one way or the other, but it is a mathematical truth. Do you have a good reason why you didn't stay with any of your local friends or bounce around between them? Are you relatively rich where hotel costs are no big deal? Most people would never pass up a free stay at a friend's place over an expensive hotel because cost is a huge factor, especially for a student in your 20s. OP responds, I stayed at the Shangri-La in the center of the city. We are well off financially, and I have lived at home my whole life. Never moved out since I went to university in the city my parents live in. So I have money from jobs as well as my maintenance loan set aside. So I googled the Shangri-La in Singapore just out of curiosity. This is an incredible piece of architecture and just a beautiful place to stay. Also, it's like 3 miles from the airport and 2 miles from Universal Studios Singapore. So it's in a prime location. It has nearly 800 rooms as well, and it's a 5-star hotel. User William Hastings comments, this is not at all on you to prove from thin air. She made the accusation, so she needs actual proof. That's how law works, LOL. Opie responds, ironically, she is a lawyer, but I doubt she's gonna really care about typical legal proceedings right now, even if I swore myself in. User Pretty Expression for You comments, you mentioned in a comment that you started planning the trip a month in advance. Yet you also stated that the last time you spoke with her fiancé was a month before your trip. Not one of you mentioned planning a trip to Singapore? Yeah, I'm not buying this. Also, it's not cool to be messaging your sister's fiancé behind her back. Doesn't matter how innocent the convos may appear to be. That's extremely disrespectful, and it opens up all kinds of doors for things to happen. You played with fire, and you got burned. OP responds, you realize the British Grand Prix was in early July 2025, and that I said in the post that we messaged about F1, right? Since you've clearly read through the various comments and responses on this post, you also know that I am London-based, so this was home turf for us. My sister knew I messaged him occasionally. She messages my boyfriend because he's currently studying in Germany, and he helped her plan a week in November to visit. They even met up for coffee, and I got a little photo of the two of them before she moved on to a similar town to see her friends. Messaging each other's partners was pretty normal. This wasn't out of the ordinary behavior. Update, the next day, April 9th, 2026. Warning, this is a very long post. There are a couple of too long didn't reads, but it will mostly be a wall of text, just like the first post. This is still formatted on mobile, so I apologize. Hello, Reddit! First, I'd like to say a huge thank you to everyone who interacted with and or commented on my original post. It helped push it out as much as possible, and I got a huge range of point of views and suggestions as to how to approach this. I tried to respond to everyone who asked/suggested something different, so there should be a fair bit of added context in the comments of the original post if you are interested in reading that. I also had a few people messaging me personally, offering support or saying I'm not in the wrong. While I appreciate this, please do not DM me personally about this. I may ask to DM and reach out on my own, but if you have advice you would like to offer, I implore you to post it in the comments here. A couple of people have advice along the lines of, you don't have to prove that you didn't cheat, it's up to your sister to prove that you did. I wish the world worked like this. Well, yes, that is the most logical way for an issue like this to solve itself. Gossip and rumors do not work like that. Many people echoed this, saying that generally people will be biased to the first story they hear. Of course, there are plenty of people in the world who will hear her claim and think it's a bunch of bullshit. But that would be a smaller portion of people. I'm not willing to leave my reputation/standing with my friends and family in the hands of statistics. In order to keep this update linear, let's start with last night, approximately 5 hours after the original post. I video called my boyfriend, going to call him Ken in this post, last night after reading through your guys' comments and advice. Many of you suggested I get in front of this as to not let her direct the narrative. So that's what I tried to do. Tried is the key word here. We chatted for a bit about normal stuff before I said we should talk about my sister's situation. Ken's facial expression visibly changed when I mentioned this. I asked what was up, and he said she had messaged him some pretty weird stuff earlier that day about her ex and me. For context, Ken knows that me and my sister have a pretty complex relationship. He also knows that me and the ex talked occasionally. He encouraged all four of us to hang sometimes, but this only happened a few times and stopped once he left for his year abroad. I asked Ken what he had been told, and he said this, paraphrased from memory as I do not know how to use a stenotype. I got a text from her while I was out saying that she needed to talk to me about our relationship. She said our relationship was doomed because she caught you cheating with her fiancé, and that you didn't even try to defend yourself. You kept focusing on irrelevant details when it was clear you two were in a hotel together in Singapore. I know you and your sister don't get along, but I never got the impression you two hated each other enough for her to lie about cheating. So I don't know where to go from here. I was floored. As I mentioned in a comment on a previous post, Ken is similar to me in that he puts logical reasoning before extremes. He asked if I had anything to say about it. I gave him the rundown from my POV in chronological order, starting from when I was booking the holiday back in August of 2025. I backed all of this up with receipts, screen shares of my bank statements from any relevant times, and photos with timestamps from nights out with friends. Somebody suggested in the last post that I have as many receipts as possible since it helps build a routine and picture of your day for people, since almost everything costs money these days, so you can track your movement. I did this before I called and made sure I had everything I might need on hand. I also got a few of my friends on text saying they know I was waking up in my own hotel room since they had to call through the hotel reception to wake me up a few times. The whole thing took about 45 minutes, of which he stayed relatively silent aside from an occasional question to make sure he was understanding all of the links I was drawing up. By the end of it, I was on the brink of tears, mostly because it took saying it all out loud to realize how fucked up the whole guilty until proven innocent thing is. Ken bluntly asked if I had cheated, to which I said no, never. He took a minute, then said he trusted me, which was a huge weight off my shoulders. He asked what could have made my sister think I cheated, and I said I didn't know, but thought she was just hurt and looking for someone to pin the blame on so she could vent her anger somewhere. He said that made sense, but he didn't understand how she drew these conclusions or how she pieced this together from a single hotel name drop. I asked what he meant, and he said there's at least 3 Shangri-La hotels or apartment blocks in Singapore, and he didn't understand how she knew I stayed in the exact same hotel. Oh shit, there is. I thought they were all in the same building, but they are very much not. Anyways, I didn't really have an answer to that. I didn't have a copy of the bank statement and didn't note down the exact recipient from the statement she waved in my face. I also said she could still argue I visited his room or he visited mine, which ended that speculation. I offered to ask to see the bank statement again, but he shut me down and said he would ask since she doesn't know we've spoken yet. He messaged her last night and she apparently responded saying she would send them to him in the morning, which should have been before this update was written, but I haven't heard anything from him, so I suspect that hasn't happened. The rest of the call was a lot of questions and not a lot of definite answers. He appreciates that I spoke to him about it and stayed calm instead of spiraling, as it helped him stay calm about it too. I sent him the post I made to ask if it was okay with me updating with our conversation, which he said was fine and he would like to see what people have to say. I slept pretty well after that. Too long didn't read 1. Boyfriend was told by my sister before I got to talk to him, but believes that I did not cheat. We talked it through, and the bank statements and photos helped him see I was with friends almost all of the time. On to this morning, right before I started typing this post. Both of my parents were home today, so I offered to cook breakfast as to hope we could all sit down and open up a chance for me to address my sister's case. I suspected that since she told Ken, she almost certainly told our parents too. However, when I tried to start explaining myself, I got cut off almost as soon as I mentioned the Singapore trip. My parents told me they had already heard my sister's half of the story the day before. No surprise there. My mom, who for context was a higher EQ than my dad, so generally takes charge with these sorts of conversations, said that while they believe they raised me better than to do something like this, she was not going to let me plead my case to them as I was clearly in a better state of mind about it, whereas my sister was torn apart. She said my sister was sensitive, and she would think that her own parents didn't believe her or care about her hurting. My dad chimed in, saying that she already has a slight resentment towards them and me because I was praised more when we were young. Context mark with a pound sign below, too much for brackets and not everyone will care. And that he wouldn't get involved but also refused to openly support me in a time where she needed to see she was supported and loved. To say I was blindsided was an understatement. The entire time they were talking on and on about how they didn't want to take sides. They were openly allying with her notion that I cheated with her fiancé. The hypocrisy was brutal. I said all of this directly to them, calling out the contradiction and saying that if they didn't take my side but openly comforted my sister, everybody we know would draw up the same conclusion that I cheated and that my parents were being charitable by not reprimanding me further. My mom said that if I was able to prepare all of this evidence and create a defense, this was proof that my mental clarity was leagues above my sister's and that she needed them more. I left after that, went for a ride on my motorbike, stayed out of the house for a couple of hours and took a breather. Too long didn't read too. Parents said my sister told them yesterday and they didn't want to take sides but would openly support her rather than me. I called out their hypocrisy and they said that I have a clearer mind right now and they don't need to focus their attention on me right now. They need to help my sister instead. Now for the context. My parents both come from poor backgrounds. My mom came to the UK with refugee status and my dad's father died when he was very young. Both of them are now incredibly well off thanks to their education. As a product of this, academia is very important in our household. I was diagnosed with autism ADHD in the summer year 10 of secondary school. For those who don't know, year 11 has students' first major set of national exams called GCSEs, which start in year 10 and are a 2-year course. My parents rushed to get me on medication, as before this, I was failing or getting poor grades despite every parent-teacher meeting being filled with teachers saying I was a top-quality student with zero motivation. My sister, comparatively, never struggled with her studies. My parents praised me a lot more than they praised her, even though I did significantly less work. Since an effort of 1% is infinite times greater than 0%, this apparently caused some jealousy, as she didn't get the same treatment from them despite putting in loads more effort, since that was considered her normal. So that's that. People were right in saying that it was going to get messy and that there was a large chance I would walk away from this with fewer people behind me than before. Ken is conflicted about my parents' approach, as he understands comforting the child who was cheated on, but doesn't imagine parents setting aside one daughter for the other. He's an only child, so never had the issue of parents prioritizing any one kid. My sister will be cut off for good once this is all over, but for now, I need to focus on clearing my name, as I don't know who else she may have told. I will not be cutting off my parents, so do not suggest that. However, I will be distancing myself and looking into moving out in June after my degree is over. Any advice on managing the parents or the fallout is much appreciated. However, I do not think my parents' viewpoint will change until my sister comes to terms with all of this. I will update if anything new happens, but I suspect this will be a slow progression from here. So please, do not message me for updates. Thank you all for reading. Smiley face. Comments. Cruth. Just curious, but it sounds like you've got a golden child situation here. Maybe I missed that in the Irish post. You've clearly got solid evidence to prove you weren't cheating and convinced your boyfriend. I'm a little concerned about how your parents are handling this. Have they taken her side like this in other situations? Will they come back and claim that your evidence isn't up to their standards and set the bar impossibly high, all in an effort to protect your sister's narrative? What are you planning to do if that happens? I know there's multiple Shangri-La hotels there because I've stayed in different ones and actually booked over and went to the other one. Opie responds, I wouldn't phrase it as my sister being the golden child. They have had plenty of arguments too, and they know we are vastly different people. So they see why we clash. They just have been tired of our spats for years. Even when we were much younger, arguments between us didn't end. They just got quieter, out of earshot of our parents, because they were fed up with us fighting. They often watched her poke fun at me, and when an argument broke out, would just tell her not to do it again and move on. The main issue I have is that I don't think they seem to realize that this isn't a stupid sibling argument but an actual real threat to my reputation. They are taking the same kind of "I'm not taking sides, just going to comfort the one that's crying" stance they did when we were kids, not thinking about how this approach looks to a very public audience. I have no plan for my next steps right now. They've clearly stated they don't want to hear my side, so they won't get it. However, our extended family will, as that's all I can focus my attention on right now. User HG Wells 13 comments, "Where is your sister's fiancé/ex-fiancé in all this? I want to know what he has to say." OP responds, "From my perspective, he's MIA. I unadded him on social media after the relationship status changed, as I felt it was inappropriate to continue to follow my sister's ex. I haven't heard much of him after that, other than from my sister herself saying she got him to pay the remainder of the rent until the end of their flat's lease." A long comment from I'm Lemon Stealing. That is an old reference. OP, I just wanted to say I'm so very sorry you're going through this, and my heart aches for you deeply. Just remember that everything you see here is my own thoughts and reflections based on what you've said here. I know your boyfriend was pretty level-headed about it, but he still put you on the stand and fought for yourself for 45 minutes. I have a hinting feeling that he was hoping you'd hang yourself in a conflicting explanation so he could pull the "gotcha bitch" and dip. Remember what it took for him to put you all through this, a few words from your sister, to have such a speculation over you. Remember what it's all about, a 45-minute defense over whether or not you could keep your pants on in your relationship. He basically put all of this into question, character, interactions, etc., over a few words from your sister of all people. Please keep that in mind when reviewing your relationship now and in the future. Is he going to expect a similar defense if something similar arises in the future? How many of these do you think you can do before you break? On the same page here, right now, all of your friends and family members talking outside your immediate circle can and will be judging you over this. Please make sure they're worth this defense of yours before you start preaching to the choir about it. Unfortunately, you'll probably find out that 90% of them aren't worth it. Because look how it made you feel after your boyfriend's interaction. I'm not saying none of them are worth it, just please review who is/isn't worth your time. I know you don't want to cut off your parents over this, which is understandable. For the future, I definitely recommend gray rocking your parents and keep them on a big information diet in the future. What's the point of them knowing if they don't want your side/take anyways? Regardless of how it played out in real life versus how it played out in your sister's head, they didn't want to hear it. That's tough. And I cried at that part for you because the same thing happened to me. I'm so sorry you're going through this right now, and I really want you to think who is worth defending my relationship with in the very near future, because I have a feeling this won't be the last time you have to do this. If you need me for anything at all, absolutely anything at all, feel free to DM me now or 5 years later. I'll always keep it open for you. And for the record, yes, I believe you with 100% certainty that you would not intentionally hop on a taken man's dick, especially one that you knew personally and is/was your sibling's significant other. OP responds, "You, literal angel, thank you." Feeling a bit emotional now reading that. Ken didn't put me on the stand, I did that myself, and honestly, I feel like it helped me to say everything out loud. He had a good few criticisms of my sister's reasoning, more than I typed in the post since it was already very long. And I think he was just very baffled since he's abroad and hasn't seen any of us in 4 months. I do see your concerns with how he approached this, i.e. ignoring the problem until I brought it up. But for now, I think things are okay. Not good, but okay. I'm kinda going over my friends and family in my head now, and realizing that I'm willing to lose a lot of them. If any of the friends or family I haven't already spoken to wish to quietly exit my life, I have no intent on stopping them. In my eyes, they would have taken my sister's side, and that's not worth my effort to change. Thank you for such a heartfelt response. I really appreciate it. hands making a heart emoji. Long jumping loss 6886. Something doesn't add up. I mean, how on earth did she randomly choose the same week to go on a trip to the same country with her sister's fiancé and in the same hotel? Coincidence? Like I said, something feels off given the context. Funny they were staying in the same hotel and never bumped into each other during breakfast or dinner. OP responds, I think I've defended myself across the past 2 posts in their respective comment sections, but the breakfast or dinner comment is new. I don't know how often you travel or stay in hotels, but I don't think I've ever been to a hotel dinner. I eat out when abroad because a hotel restaurant will never get everything right. And it's more fun to go with friends to a restaurant that specializes in whatever cuisine you fancy that evening anyways. I'm a tourist. I want to see more than just the hotel lobby when I spend 13 plus hours on a plane just to get there. Most breakfasts were also missed because the whole point of the trip was for my friends and I to drink ourselves to death. No sum of money could have got me out of bed before 11 a.m. after spending an entire night walking around humid Singapore while absolutely hammered. User Duke's Handbook comments, I have so many questions that need answers. 1. Why would you have to get HR involved? 2. Do you work together? 3. If you were there with your friends, why haven't your friends also jumped into this? 4. When you say you hang out with your ex, is her fiancé your ex? 5. Am I missing something or getting some things crossed? I'm so invested after reading this. This could be a movie for real. OP responds, 1. Someone said I should pressure the ex-fiancé into saying who he was actually cheating with. I said this was a good idea by getting my boyfriend to message him instead, but also mentioned that the ex-fiancé might be hesitant to admit who it was if he was cheating with one of his coworkers. HR gets messy. 2. No, I am a student. 3. The entire point of trying to get ahead of this was to avoid having everyone and their mothers involved in conspiracy theories, especially not people who live a 13-plus hour flight and 7 hours ahead due to time zones. 4. Her fiancé is now her ex, and 5. Definitely. I highly suggest you read the previous post if you haven't already, as it will definitely clear your confusion. I will certainly be keeping an eye in the future if this one has any future updates. I felt that it did at least have a natural kind of mid-story conclusion, no different than what we would normally find on other subreddits and how those stories go. So, I figured this would be a good point to cover it and just keep a general eye on it. In my opinion, the real villains of this story are the parents. Because while I don't agree with the line of logic, I can understand where the sister is at least coming from of, oh, my boyfriend was cheating with women when he was on his work trips and going to hotels and whatnot, and you just happened to be at the same hotel during one of his work trips in Singapore. That's really suspicious and makes me think you cheated with him. I can understand where that logic is coming from, but also she's only doing things to confirm her bias. She's refusing all and any evidence that would clear her sister's name and only focusing on the things that would further damn her. Because as humans, we tend to focus on things that confirm what we're trying to find, rather than potentially disprove it. And then, of course, the sister continued to do inexcusable things, like, without even listening to what her sister had to say, just going and telling fucking everyone, and just igniting the sister's reputation. Sounds like she was just trying to find a reason to burn this bridge, and she found it and decided not to back down. Now, the parents, on the other hand, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah, I know she's accusing you of sleeping with her fiancé, and I know that she's going to probably tell the entire family, and I know that this is going to look really bad on you, but she's crying, and we gotta be there for her. How about you be there for the daughter who's about to be slandered? This whole situation is just horrible, and it sucks badly. And all I can really do is wish OP the best, and hopefully things don't end up spiraling further, or maybe your sister-in-law actually just wakes up and realizes, oh, I fucked up. Oops, sorry. But seeing as how things have been described so far, I don't see that as a possibility. Seems more likely she'll just double down. Confirmation bias is a hell of a drug. This post was collected by Choice Evidence 1983, and their tagline is, "It dawned on me that he was a wizard." The original OP is Low Intern 7915, originally posted to r/AskMuff, the French Ask Women subreddit. Posted March 21st, 2026. My girlfriend made a comment about my background. How should I react? Hey, 23 male here. I've been with my girlfriend, 24 female, for a little over a year. Overall, things are going well between us. Like all couples, we've had arguments, but nothing too serious so far. Right now, things are a bit complicated. I'm still in school and have to juggle part-time jobs to get by. So, I have a lot less time. She, on the other hand, has finished her studies and started working. The result, we've seen each other a lot less in recent weeks. Almost a month and a half without really spending time together. We saw each other recently, and at first, everything was fine. Then we started talking about this distance, the lack of time, and the discussion ended up turning into an argument. During this argument, she said something that really shocked me. Basically, she made a remark about my background, saying that people like me, or from my ethnicity, were all the same. She added that, according to her, guys like me end up running away when the relationship gets serious, that they weren't reliable in the long term, and that deep down, she should have expected it, given where I come from. Those are her own words. To be clear, I'm mixed race, black father, white mother, so it's something that affects me directly. At the time, I was mostly shocked. We were cold with each other for a few days. When I asked for explanations, she apologized, saying it was in the heat of the moment, and that she was on her period at the time, that her tongue slipped. But honestly, it made me think. I'm having a hard time getting over it as if nothing happened. It destabilizes me in terms of our relationship and the image I have of her. I don't really know what to think or how to react. I talked to some friends, both guys and girls. Most of my guy friends tell me to dump her, that it reveals her true personality. My female friends recognize that she's wrong, but think it can happen in the heat of the moment and that we should talk about it. Anyway, I'm a bit lost, so I'm coming to ask for outside opinions. What do you think? Edit, guys who are asking me if my mother is single, get lost. Editor's note, OP also made the same original post onto another French subreddit. I'm adding relevant comments from that sub for more context. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. On the other hand, you know she likes you because you've got rhythm, which is a plus. Just try voting for La France in so boy. Insoumise. That feels right. La France Insoumise, LFI, to counter her national rally, RN vote, and thus maintain the balance of the world like a modern-day Thanos. OP responds, she's always said she's apolitical, so I've never really known exactly where she stands. Personally, I find that position questionable, but oh well. However, she's always told me she'd get into it later. Question mark. Commenter 2. Does she have exes from your ethnic group? OP responds, no, I'm the first. Commenter 3. So, I'm mixed race, white mother and black father, and I can't ignore this comment. It's unacceptable and racist, especially with the stereotype of black fathers leaving and the fact that you're a man. OP responds, yeah, there's a chance I'm fooling myself. The thing is, I can spot a racist a mile away. Yet, since I've known her, she's never shown any signs. Well, until now. Maybe I need to accept it, but I still want to have a discussion to understand why this is happening. I'm trying to stay calm, but no matter how many times this happens, it still disgusts me deeply. Commenter 4. Well, this is a total disaster. So, let's be clear. This is your life, your relationship, and your choice. A relationship can't be summed up in a single post, and ultimately, it comes down to what you envision for your future and your happiness. So, if you want to try fighting for your relationship because you love her, because you believe in your girlfriend, or for a whole host of other reasons, nobody has any right to object. That said, I strongly advise you not to bring children into the mix until you've had a serious discussion about her racism, because you really don't want a mother who says things like that raising children who might not turn out to be entirely pale-skinned themselves. Quick little Oz insertion here. It's my opinion from what the information we have that she has no interest in having children, and she just always assumed that OP would eventually walk away when things got serious, so he was just an easy, quick relationship to have for fun that had no serious strings attached because, in her revolting opinion, your people and ethnicity are just like that. So I don't think she ever had the intention of having a family or going beyond just simply dating with OP. Anyways, I believe that anger can be a poor advisor and make you say things you don't truly mean. But there's a world of difference between screaming "shut the fuck up" at your significant other while you're losing your shit over a bunch of unrelated issues, and then naturally apologizing afterward because you don't speak that way to people you love and respect, and, on the other hand, spouting a rather elaborate and calculated theory about people of your specific ethnicity, people like you, from where you come from, which implies a fairly sophisticated line of thought, and then sulking for several days afterward. I am white, so even though I have some idea, based on what I've read and the testimonies I've heard, of what it's like to live in France as a non-white person, I don't know what that feels like on a daily basis. However, I do know that racism, much like sexism, has become normalized despite being absolutely everywhere. And sexism, that I know firsthand, and I know just how heavy and exhausting it can be at times. You don't deserve to face this out in the world, generally speaking, but you deserve it less within the sanctuary of your own private life, because, quite frankly, no one deserves that. It's up to you to decide if you want to give her a chance, though honestly, make sure it's no more than one. She needs to make amends and never throw that back in your face again. But I know that personally, a comment along those same lines, only sexist in nature, would have completely extinguished any love I felt. It really comes down to how you feel about it. I wish you a lot of strength. OP responds, "First off, thanks for your support. Anyway, yes, I do plan on having a serious talk about all of this because I need answers. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed in her, but deep down, I'm actually even more disappointed in myself, in a way. If she really is racist, I'm going to feel like a total idiot for having let myself be manipulated right from the start. Honestly, it's exhausting, having to deal with these kinds of remarks all the time." Commenter 5. I'm autistic, and since the beginning of my relationship with my boyfriend, 18 months, I've experienced very stressful moments that leave me on edge, which has led to many meltdowns. Autistic episodes where I completely lose control. But during these meltdowns, I have never ever insulted my boyfriend about his background. Anger and period pain are absolutely no excuse for being insulting, especially in a racist way, to the person you're supposed to love and cherish. I can't imagine the shock this must have been for you, especially after a little over a year. First, take some time for yourself to sort through your thoughts, then, after that, maybe have a talk with her if you need to. I'm not going to tell you whether to leave her or not, that's your decision. The real question is whether you think you can get past her racist remarks or not. Staying with someone you resent is never a good thing. It destroys you little by little. I also saw in one of your comments that you felt ashamed of having been manipulated. I can understand why, but don't forget that you're not responsible for the dishonesty and malice of others. You'll never be at fault for having suffered this. The shame should belong to her. In any case, take good care of yourself. You deserve a love story where your partner loves you for who you are, and above all, respects you, even in difficult times. OP responds, "Thank you so much for your message. It really warms my heart." Update, April 8th, 2025, 2.5 weeks later. Here's a link to the main sub. Honestly, I wasn't expecting so many replies on my last post, but seriously, thanks everyone. With all that, I took the time to talk to my dad to get his opinion, since I'm really close to him. Then, as planned, I decided to talk to her directly to clear things up. To be honest, I didn't see the relationship lasting, but I at least wanted to see if her apology was sincere. We sat down in a park, and I'd even taken the trouble to write down a few points on my phone, like some people had advised me to do. Anyway, I won't drag out the suspense. She admitted she was wrong, but she also told me I was overreacting, that it wasn't that serious, and that my reaction kind of confirmed her stereotypes. Even though she acknowledged her mistake, she completely downplayed the impact of her words. At that moment, I knew right away that the best thing to do was to stop all this, which I did, on the spot. She took it really badly and started sending me a ton of messages telling me I was making too much of a fuss, that I should look at it objectively, and that the fact that she was dating someone of color proved she wasn't racist, and so on. As it stands, I've blocked her pretty much everywhere. I understood from mutual friends that her behavior came from her parents. Apparently, they didn't know she was dating a mixed-race person and lectured her. Anyway, for me, that doesn't justify anything. For those who are going through similar situations, sometimes even if someone apologizes, If their reaction minimizes how you feel, it's better to protect yourself and cut ties. Even if the person is sincere and admits their racist stereotypes, if it makes you uncomfortable and you don't see yourself being comfortable in the long run, don't feel bad about cutting ties. Thanks again, and goodbye. Honestly, with what was said to OP, I didn't really see many endings that would have been other than what happened here. She made no attempt to apologize or even try to reconcile with her internal and flawed worldview. Instead, it's not my problem that you're like this, it's your problem you're overreacting, and to be honest, you're just proving my internal monologue and internal worldview. Yeah, no, that's just racism. Honestly, racial stuff aside, I couldn't imagine continuing a relationship where someone just outright told me like, oh yeah, like I just thought that you would run away when the relationship got serious. That just tells me like, oh, so you never actually saw this relationship going anywhere long term. Like, this was just kind of like a random, like temporary deal for you, huh? Okay, well, temporary it is. But now add on the comment of you people and your ethnicity. Yeah, that is a window into a very ugly soul. Don't forget to use code odds at checkout with GamerSups. Yeah, do that. You get like 10% off. It's super cool because it supports the channel directly. So you get caffeine, I get some of my bills paid. Win-win if you drink caffeine. They also have caffeine free too, as well as sleep aid stuff. So, it doesn't have to be caffeine if you don't want it. But as your fun fact for the outro for today, did you know that if you put a hot dog in a flashlight, nothing happens? Well, now you know.